Countyfairgrounds and Cool K here. Do I have the one and only infamous Greg Thompson on the line?
You do?
Hi, Mr. Thompson. How's your day going?
Good. Who am I speaking with?
This is Cool K.
Hey, Cool K. How are you?
Busy. Normal. Okay, so, you're an entertainer. You've been an entertainer for a long time.
Yep.
And some of the people are going to want to know exactly how you got started. So do you want to give it a shot? All right, so tell me a little bit about how Mr. Greg Thompson got started, please.
Well, I never wanted to get a real job. That was the main thing. No, I'm kidding. When I was actually a fairly shy kid, but when I was in the 8th grade, I had gone to area folk festivals around North Carolina, and I learned a lot of silly songs that the musicians were playing and singing, and I brought them back to my school, and I was sharing them with my friends because I thought they were funny, and it kind of turned into a thing that, hey, go get Greg to sing those funny songs. And I also learned to clog. I started a local clogging team. We traveled for 6 years. And I was like, hey, I kind of like this. This is cool. My brother was an entertainer, and when I saw him working at a theme park, I was like, he's getting paid for doing this? I want to do that. So I just kind of started seeking out ways to get paid to entertain, and one of the things was working at a radio station where I was being asked to MC a lot of things, and it just kind of developed from there.
Okay. All right, so do you remember the one of the first most important gigs that you did that you got paid for?
Let's see. Yes. My clogging team got paid to perform at a large 4th of July festival in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I couldn't believe that they were paying us $200. So 20 of us loaded up in the cars that our parents were driving, and we drove to Charlotte, North Carolina to perform 4 routines in an evening, and we got paid $200, and I thought that was a fortune. And, of course, we didn't see any of it. That went to pay for the hotel rooms and the gas to get up there and perform. But we had a great time.
So, I always ask this question, too, because kids, especially as they're growing up and getting into this kind of stuff, what did your parents think of it?
Well, my dad thought that it was a fun part-time thing to do, but that I needed to concentrate on school and real jobs. And my mom just thought that it was great. My mom thought that, hey, Greg's getting up on stage and entertaining people, and she was all for it. Her biggest day was when my clogging team went to perform at Carowinds in Charlotte, and my brother was in a show there, so she would go see his show and come and see my show, and then go back to see his show, and then so she was quite happy that day. And I think everybody in the park knew that both of her sons were performing that day.
Okay. Does your brother still perform?
No, my brother unfortunately passed away in 1994.
No.
But he was my hero, so he was my inspiration to be an entertainer.
Okay. All right, so you went on from there. Did you go to college?
I went to some college, but I was more interested in working than I was school. I didn't care for school a lot, except, I didn't mind school except for going to class and studying and taking tests. Other than that, it was fun. But working at the radio station, I went on from there. I worked for a singing telegram company in Florida. I moved back to North Carolina, opened my own singing telegram company, and then moved to Florida, where I started to work at the local theme parks and dinner attractions. And that's where I really started learning my chops as an entertainer.
All right, you run a lot of different kinds of things. You want to tell us what your favorite thing is now that you do?
Well, I have a couple of favorite things. My favorite thing to do is them Sweeney-Boys. It's an act that was developed over 20 years ago, and we're still doing it. But I also have a big Santa Claus business, and believe it or not, it's the end of September, and we are getting bombarded with requests for Santa Claus for this season.
Yeah, I'm more into Halloween to start with right now. But yeah, I hear you. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you have a pirate entertainment group too. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Sure. We have a number of people that work with me with the Vagabond Pirates, and all of the folks that I work with, they have their backgrounds at Disney, Universal Studios, and SeaWorld, because that's probably where I met them. And we come in and we put on authentic pirate attire. We say we're not wearing costumes, we're wearing clothes. And we are funny and entertaining and a little rough around the edges, because you're supposed to be if you're a pirate. And we have a pirate band, and a number of my pirates do a number of different variety entertainment, like juggling, or I have a couple of fortune tellers. Like I said, the musicians, the band. We have magicians, magical pirates, and stilt walking pirates as well. So if anybody's having a pirate-themed event or a pirate festival, we can supply them with as many pirates as they need.
Okay, so you've done that all over the United States pretty much?
Yeah, we've done it all over the United States, and one time we went to St. Thomas, which was fantastic, and once we went to Jamaica.
Okay. All right. And, so, all right, then there's other things that you do, too. You're the sweeney-boys, I see that. But you also have a place called Southeastern North Carolina's Brown Street Station. That's something a little bit different. How did you get into that?
Well, back during when COVID was happening and none of us were working, a friend of mine in my hometown was trying to start up a revitalization of my hometown. My hometown fell victim to drugs in the late 80s and early 90s. The economy went down there because we were a big tobacco town. The farmers farmed tobacco. That was the big moneymaker, and that kind of went out the window in the late 80s. And our downtown was just looked horrible, and we have, on average, 10,000 cars a day. That's in the slow season, driving right through the heart of our downtown, and they saw what it just looked really bad. It looked like a ghost town. It was embarrassing. Boarded up windows, buildings literally falling into the street. And a friend of mine said, why don't you buy a building and refurbish it? And I kind of laughed about it, and then I thought about it and went, And I inquired about one building. Come to find out, it was owned by the husband of my second cousin. I made him an offer, and he took it, and I refurbished. It used to be a farm store where they sold horse feed and nails and baby chickens and chains, and so they and it had been used for storage for the last 20 years, and it's a pretty big space. It's 5,000 square feet, and I bought it with my wife's permission, and we put the word out there that we bought this building, and I had always wanted to have a special events place in my hometown. So that's what my wife said. She said, well, I can't say no, because ever since I've known you since '84, you've talked about having a special events place in your hometown. So let me think about it. And a couple of days later, she was like, okay, you're going to have to do this. So it's been open for almost 3 years now, and we've had dueling pianos. We've had celebrity tribute shows in there. We've had a beauty pageant in there. We've had Super Bowl party. Numerous people have rented it over the last 3 or 4 years to have their special events in it. But it's something I'm really proud of. So when I go back home, I like to just go there and hang out and I spend time rearranging tables and putting up different curtains and changing. It's just a fun thing for me to do. And we have now started a nonprofit organization called the Carolina Foundation for the Arts that will be based out of that venue, and we will be promoting for young people to seek careers in entertainment, those who are interested, because coming from a small town, you don't even really think that's a possibility. You may be very talented, but being from a small town like that, you go, well, what do I do with this? They're going to ask me to play and sing at the church. I don't get paid for that, but it's a good thing to do. And we're going to utilize this foundation to raise money and bring more arts into the area and to encourage those kids around there who think that the best job they're ever going to have is working at the local convenience store.
Well, Greg, I've interviewed a lot of entertainers throughout the years. I've interviewed a lot of famous entertainers, and I always love hearing how they get started. And the stories are amazing. They come at you from all different kinds of directions. But, yeah, that's kind of a neat thing that you've got going there to be able to help the young people get started in entertainment. And one of the things that I've always enjoyed listening to is how their young person's parents think about this. It's kind of an interesting thing.
Yes, it is. My mother had always been very supportive of entertainment, and my father was always kind of like, well, one of these days he's going to get a real job.
Yeah.
But I remember the night that he changed his mind about that. I was working at Medieval Times Dinner and Tournament in Kissimmee, Florida, where I was the master of ceremonies. And I've always been the kind of person that I like everybody. Unless you give me a reason to not like you, I like everybody. So I was friends with most everybody that worked at Medieval Times. So the night my dad and my stepmother came to see the show, the word got around that Greg's dad is here. So he was sitting right on the front in the middle, and I think every employee at Medieval Times that night went up to him and said, "You're Greg's dad?" And he was so proud that starting that night, it went from, my son's in entertainment to, my son's in entertainment. He's the MC at Medieval Times.
That's cute. That's cute. I've heard some really interesting stories. Hey, you're hireable as an MC?
I am.
Okay, what kind of MC things have you done?
I have MC'd everything from corn shucking contest to Miss America preliminary pageants and everything in between.
Okay.
So the secret of being a good MC is, first of all, you've got to act like you are so excited to be there. This is the most important thing happening in the world. And then when something goes wrong, because 9 times out of 10 they do sometime during the evening, you have to cover that and make it look like nothing is happening at all, so the audience has no idea that you're just killing time until they can get things back on track. And you got to be entertaining while you do it.
Have you ever worked in Las Vegas at all?
I've worked in Las Vegas a number of times for special events. I've never gone there and lived there, but I've probably been to Vegas a couple of dozen times for different conventions, special events, that type of thing.
You do a lot of stuff in Florida, don't you?
Most of the stuff that I do is in Florida, but I get booked around the country on a fairly regular basis. But not all the time, because I like being at home. I probably go out of state about once a month.
Yeah. Okay, now let me ask you this question. Has there ever been anything that you've gone through with your entertainment career that makes you regret what you've done?
Oh, I'm sure. Let's see. A couple of times I probably have stepped out on stage to do a solo act when I wasn't fully prepared to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that I do a one-man show, and when I first started doing it, I was trying to create a brand new one-man show with all new material, and forgetting that I have, a couple of hours material already done in my pocket, and I tried to do new material, and you don't do that. You don't try out new material on a paid gig. You just don't.
Yeah.
So that was one regret, but I will share with you the time that I was most frightened to walk out on stage.
Okay.
And it happened just about 3 years ago. I was opening for, I had been, a friend of mine at the University of Findlay had asked me to be the MC for a comedy show that their university was putting on. And the headliners that year were Caroline Ray. You may remember her from Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Yep.
She played Aunt Hilda, and she's very funny. She started off as a stand-up comedian. And the other one was Josh Blue. And Josh Blue that year had won, he had come in third on America's Got Talent. He'd been around for a while. He has cerebral palsy, and he does his entire routine about having cerebral palsy, and it is a riot. But there were kind of big names in comedy. And I was asked to MC, and as an MC, you have to entertain for 15 or 20 minutes, then bring on the next act. And then you go back out for about 10 or 15 minutes and bring on the headliner. I was terrified. I'd been doing this my entire life, and there were 2,000 people out there. And I walked out with my banjo, and my heart was about to beat out of my chest. I even told my friend who booked me, I said, I've never been this terrified to walk out on stage before. And she said, oh, you're going out there. And I said, oh, I know I'm going out there. I'm scared to death. And I walked out on stage, and that immediately went away. And for 20 minutes, I had 2,000 people in the palm of my hands. And it was one of the most awesome things I've ever done.
Does your wife perform with you?
Not at all. She's not an entertainer.
Your wife doesn't perform with you, okay? So how does she feel about the whole thing?
Well, she loves what I do. Years ago, when we were dating, she said she did not like to be in the spotlight, but she liked to be around people who were in the spotlight. So she helps me with the business tremendously, and she and I produce a convention for celebrity impersonators, and she's quite involved in that. But she handles the business and the taxes and all that stuff, which is extremely important when you're running a business. What's that?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. She does Mrs. Claus with me a few times a year.
Mrs. Claus, you like playing Santa Claus. Where do you do that at?
Well, we started out 20 years ago, and we were mostly doing home visits. And I'm very particular. I take being Santa very seriously. I was a big fan of Santa Claus when I was a kid, and when I was 14, I hung on to the Santa Claus fantasy until I was 14. I was in the 8th grade, and when I finally faced the facts, I was like, okay, well, if I can't believe in Santa Claus anymore, I'm going to be Santa Claus. And I was the puniest little, skinny little 14-year-old Santa Claus you ever saw. But yeah, I love doing Santa Claus, and Jackie had several years ago started appearing with me at certain events, like the resorts and stuff. But what I was getting to is we started out doing home visits, and over the years, I would say 85% of our appearances now are corporate events, and I have 14 guys who work with me, and we stay busy.
Yeah. That's already starting to start up, isn't it?
Yes, we have, I would say we have over 30% of our bookings already on the books. And last year was our record year, and we've already got probably closer to 40% of those on the books now. So it's crazy.
So you're pretty much booked Santa-wise in what states?
In Florida. I do it in Florida. We stay so busy right here in Central Florida. Sometimes I will travel down to West Palm, or actually Palm Beach, or to Jacksonville, but it's a rare occasion because we get so many bookings here in Central Florida. It's crazy.
Hey, Greg, do you have any kids?
I have one. I have a 27-year-old, and she is an entertainer too.
Wow. What does she do?
Well, she is a Marilyn Monroe impersonator. She was the youngest person to be hired to portray Marilyn Monroe at Universal Studios. She did that for 4 years, and now she does freelance. She also portrays Anne Margaret and Cyndi Lauper. But she is also, all right, hang on to your seats because I'm going to say something and people are going to go, what? She is a pinup model, and she is a burlesque performer. Now, when people think of burlesque, they're like, oh, my God, she's a stripper. Nope, it's a whole different ball game these days. It is high-end entertainment, and it's celebrating the art of the tease. So these girls are not going to be at any gentleman's reviews or anything like that. This is something that people can go to, and she performs at a lot of high-end restaurants, social events, and 55-plus communities.
Okay.
It's really cool. I said it's like Gypsy Rose Lee meets Bette Midler.
Uh-huh. Have you got a grandchild person?
Nope, not yet. She's still dating.
Okay. All right. I don't know what else to ask you. So you're open for booking. So how do people reach you if they want to book you?
Well, the best thing to do is find my website, which is greg-thompson.com. That's my personal website. It has all of my personal entertainment stuff. And then my agency that I specialize in booking celebrity impersonators, lookalikes, and tribute artists is greg-thompsonagency.com.
So you actually hire people and book them?
Yes. Jackie and I have been producing the Sunburst-Convention of Celebrity Impersonators for 20 years. And we also book them, and we book them all over the country, whether it's casinos, corporate events, nightclubs, private events, PACs, or 55-plus communities, and fairs and festivals.
Didn't that Sunburst Convention just take place recently?
We just had it 3 weeks ago.
And it's a once-a-year thing, right?
This was our last year. We decided to, after 20 years, it was officially announced as the last year, and we had no idea what it meant to the attendees until this year when we said, okay, we're not going to do this anymore. Because we don't make any money off of it. It's more of a labor of love, and we really enjoy it. But we said, you know what, it doesn't make sense to spend this much time and not make money. But we had so many people this year come up and go, you don't know what this convention means to me, because we help develop entertainers and we help them with their career to get more bookings so we're going to do like a reunion retreat next year, and then the following year we're looking at reviving the convention, but we have to take it apart, look at it, and put it back together so it makes more sense for us to do it. But it's the biggest one in the world. And we have had over 800 professional celebrity impersonators come to it over the last 20 years, and most of them have been numerous times.
Yeah, I try to help a lot of the entertainers get bookings, too. I understand where you're coming from. It's a big endeavor.
It is.
Okay. All right. Well, so how do people reach you again? And we'll plug that on the end here. And so you want to give us how they reach you again?
The best way to reach me is to go to my website. I have two, actually. One is greg-thompson.com, Greg with one G, and the other is greg-thompson-agency.com, or they can follow me on Facebook.
Okay. Well, I thoroughly enjoyed talking to you, and
I really enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it too. Thank you, Greg.
Okay, take care. Thanks for calling.
Bye.
Bye-bye.